to the 2017-2018 Board of Aldermen Budget Deliberations. Today is April 10th, 2017, and today we are here for a departmental presentation portion of the aldermanic budget process. Before we begin, will everyone please rise so we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Chairman. Alderman Anderson.
Alderman Anderson would like to get excused, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Alderman Beatty. Alderman Bevan.
Here.
Alderman Beer.
Madam Secretary, Alderman Beer is excused.
Alderman Casey.
Here.
Alderman Gurman.
Madam Secretary, Alderman Gurman is also excused.
Thank you. Alderman Gentilizio.
Here.
Alderman Goldman. Here. Alderman Grant.
Here.
Alderman Hardiman.
Alderman Hardiman would also like to be excused, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Shaw.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Beccarelli.
Here.
Alderman Beecher.
Here.
Alderman Martell.
Here. We have 11 present. We have a quorum. At this point, the first department organization on our agenda is number 4812, Transit District, page 89, moved from May 10th. Oh, sure. And Henry's up. Good evening, Henry.
Good evening. My name is Henry Janet. I'm the Executive Director of the Milford Transit District. For those of you who don't know, we operate fixed route buses, ADA, van services, door-to-door services for the elderly, and commuter parking for the Metro North commuters. Very happy to be first today. It's the first. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone on the board would like to ask Henry any questions regarding the budget? Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, good evening. My question is, I don't know if you can answer it or to the Finance Director. In regards to the new parking that you're going to be administrating in the new public parking lot near the train station, is that money going directly into the general fund, or are we going to be setting up an enterprise fund for that revenue stream?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Giannatasio, this board did set up an enterprise fund for that entire parcel, the 2.2 acre parcel that includes the parking and the building facility, whereas the building rentals and leases were profitable. The parking was not. Henry and Milford Transit District, we came up with a win-win partnership where they took that portion on. The leases are going into this, as you said, separate reserve fund that this board created. But the parking, the costs associated with the parking are going to help offset whatever they bring in.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, through you. So just to be clear, the parking revenue is still going to be included with the rental, or is it going to be separated?
No, the city's going to retain the front section for 2-hour parking and parking for, the shops at the River Street Plaza. The back section, however, or most of the back section, will be run and operated by Milford Transit. There are going to be significant costs associated with that, monitoring the site, maintaining the site, maintaining it free of snow and ice, and the removal costs associated with that. Those costs are going to be paid for by the annual permits that they're going to give out to the City of Milford residents.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for the bill for transit? Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, maybe my first question is to the mayor. I know we had a management company doing exactly what Henry has been doing transit. Can you tell us if there was a balance in that account, or how much we gained by having a management company?
So the costs associated with the total property, obviously we're gaining more revenue, but if you bifurcate the parking and the rental for the building, the rental for the building was a lot more profitable than all the costs associated with maintaining the parking lot. The parking lot was operating at a loss, whereas the building was where the revenue was coming in. There was no, the parking was operating at a loss, so Henry had a better, more efficient system that brought in more folks because he had a list of names of several hundred deep. But there is money, there is a positive amount in that revenue account, if that's what your question is.
There is a positive amount in that revenue account, even after the management had gotten their share, and we paid them off, or paid them monthly.
Yes.
Thank you. One more question, please. Henry, your request, the mayor recommendation, and the Board of Finance recommended a $5,000 increase in your budget. Can you just elaborate on that $5,000?
We've signed contracts with our operators under contract for very minimal increases. We haven't received it. It doesn't reflect increases in any of the other accounts, just the operators' increases, which I believe this year is like 1.5%. That'll defray the cost of that.
So that alone is, that $5,000 alone takes care of the increase in the contract?
No, it takes care of a portion.
And if where would that other balance go with that?
Hopefully from the state of Connecticut fares and fees.
The increase in the budget is from the increase in state and fees? I don't understand.
No. The funds that we receive almost 70% of our funds from the state of Connecticut. The city is about 16 or 18%, the rest is the fares. Contractually, we have a contract with our union operators. They have a very small increase coming up, probably reflects about $15,000 overall in the year. And that increase that we request from the city would help defray the cost of that plus increase. The other increases would come out of the money we receive from the state, and a very small portion operating from the federal government and from fares.
So a portion of that $5,000 would go to the contractual piece, and then whatever the decisions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the bill for transit? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you're doing for the city. At this point, the next department, our agenda is account number 4157, Harbor Commission, page 109.
Good evening. Ray Swift, Director of Milford Landing. And you know what? This is the first winter in about 5 that it's been kind of normal. No power outages, no ice damage, no floods. And last year we redid the patio, which took a while. But it's been a good winter. We made some improvements down there. And like every other season, the reservations are coming in and everything's gone the way it typically is. So, short of the weather, I don't expect any surprises. Anybody has any questions?
I just want to compliment on the great job you're doing down there. I've been down there quite a bit this year already, and even though the weather just basically started to be nice. But it really looks nice down there. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, we're getting there. The crew just started they're all coming back slowly, but they started coming in this week. The kids are off from school, so that's a big help.
those slips are all taken, are all
Yeah, they're big
reserved?
events, you know, the same people every year call, and then we fit in as many people as we can.
That's great. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if the new lines that are going in with the new docks this year in Milford Harbor, you know, the helicoils and the ropes, are you putting them in this year?
We replaced, over the winter, we replaced shackles, but that's been completed. That project went into January, and had a great crew come in, and they were in the water right into the middle of January, but they managed to finish the job, and the floats are back out now, ready, you know, ready for the season.
I guess what the lines that hook up to the helicoils that are screwed in, and then they go up to the floats. That line, the rubber bands, like.
No, those are fine. Those get inspected. Those are fine. What started to wear was a specialized shackle that's used to hook a line up to the anchors.
Oh, okay.
And we had one fail last year, and because of that,
Okay, thank you.
we replaced them all.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you for you. I noticed that each year on the budget there's a line item for a snow thrower. I was just curious, does your team take and maintain the snow down that area, or is it Public Works that does this?
No, I do, when it snows, I plow the boat ramp, the bottom of High Street, the flotilla parking lot, our parking lot at the landing, and I use a snow blower to do the bridge and whatever sidewalks I can get to. It's in there every year. We have one, and every year I keep it running. So at some point, it's like the lawnmower. You'll see a lawnmower in there too. It's in there every year because that's probably our most important tool. And when that does break, we need to be able to go right out and get one. So that's why that's in there every year.
Thank you.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ray, you do a nice job down there as usual.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that the patio really came out nicely. And it's, where all the bushes were taken apart, taken off and run. It looks clean and it's really, really nice looking.
Have you seen how it made it through the winter? It looks great.
Yeah,
It looks perfect.
Yeah, it's
So,
good.
beautiful.
So thank you.
Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for you today. How many seasonal tents do you usually bring in for the summertime?
It's been, I try to stay at 9 seasonal temps. And that's kind of a skeleton crew because they're all kids and they typically, most of them have a family vacation. And a lot of them tend to be around that last week of July, first week of August. And I need a minimum of 6 on Friday and Saturday. So that leaves 3 off. I've gone as many as 10, but then that starts cutting into the hours that they really want until they don't want. So 9 seems to be the number.
Thank you.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. It looks like at line item 4823, general auto liability, your department has asked for $45,286, but the finance board has recommended $43,129. What does that mean in terms of like, what are we going to do without if you don't get that?
I don't put in for that number. The finance department generates those numbers, and I appreciate the fact that it's stabilized and even come down a little bit from last year. So that's all good news. So that number for us is actually the lower the better. Yes, it's a savings for us.
Any more questions for our commission? Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening, Brad. It looks like, I went through all these line items, it looks like you got exactly what you requested. There hasn't been any significant changes here. Would you agree?
I'd agree.
Okay, I mean, so it doesn't seem like there's any wants. I guess this is this a flat budget for
It
you?
is, only because over the years, we've cut as much as we can, and because at times it could be a harsh environment down there. I could probably cut a little more, but then, like I said, when something happens, whether it's a storm or equipment breakdown, but I don't need any more. Matter of fact, I try to spend as little as possible, but still maintain everything down there the way it is. So I don't know if your line of questioning is, do I feel like I need more, or should I be doing with less?
No, I would say that, you know, I'm pleased to see that you are able to do everything that you need to do with the money that's allocated. And I know that you've made some capital improvements down there. So I am also pleased with, you know, the end result of the infrastructure and how you run things. I just more or less wanted to comment that it doesn't seem like you're, you know, asking for something that you need. So I just wanted to, you know, bring that to the surface, and it seems like you're pretty satisfied with the way things are going.
Yeah, you know, it's a fine line every year between a year in the red and a year in the black, and we've always managed to be in the black, and that's important to me. But the city's also been very good, the sport's been good, the city's been good, and our operating, you know, as far as taking care of some of our needs.
Yeah, and I think,
You know, we had a huge expense last fall with this shackle repair, which was
and I don't know
$100,000.
if this is part of the result of us raising your fees. A couple of years back, we increased the fees. I'm sure that that's helped along the way as
We're in
well.
the last year of that phase in, to where resident ramp sticker is $50 now, so now we're, you know, that's,
Okay.
it seems
Thank
to
you.
be, so, I think we're in good shape, and like I said, the goal is to be in the black, and we do what we can with what we can. Thank you.
Any more questions for the Harbor Commissioner? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ray. Thank you for the great job you're doing for the city. The next department on our agenda is account number 4142, Department of Permitting and Land Use, page 27.
I'd like to briefly go through this overview that was handed out, and I'd like to answer whatever questions there might be regarding our operations last year and the coming year. This proposed budget for 2017-2018 at $1,084,000 represents an $86,000 increase over the budget for 2016-17. The primary generator of that increase, the $80,000, is the salary increases that we're dealing with. A couple of other things that I should highlight in the budget. As we did last year, we took for the individual offices, building department, planning and zoning, and inland wetlands, we consolidated various operating accounts. Again, we are continuing to do that in this year's budget, and the result is we're able to reduce costs and find savings by combining those. We are doing that. We're trying to be a little bit cautious and not go overboard with that, but we're continuing with that concept. Also included in this year's proposed budget, we've got an additional $5,500 as a line item for the replacement of our tablets. I'll review how we're utilizing tablets finally in the building department, but we're looking to purchase 5 of those tablets. The ones that we're using right now are 6 years old, and I've been working with G. Lasek with MIS to come up with the best solution for those. You should note that the second sheet that I handed out shows some projections for both the number of permits, the construction values, and the permit fees. It's showing the numbers that we generated in 2015, and then the projection for the 2016-17 year. Obviously, we're only entering into the fourth quarter right now, so we're projecting some numbers there. But we are projecting that our permit fees will increase over last year by about $55,000. Obviously, there's a number of things generating the fluctuations, not the least of which are some of these large-sized projects that come in to us. Staffing over the past year, we have formalized the replacement for the chief building inspector. Charlie Correll, who had been acting as the interim chief building inspector, was formally put in that position, and I have heard a lot of positive things, not just about Charlie and the operation, but how the building department has just turned around, just in terms of attitude and their ability and being receptive to any customers coming in the door, or just being willing to help them. And Charlie has really helped out. I mean, he's just instrumental in just turning the attitude around in that office. Since Charlie was building inspector A, we've now also hired his replacement. Rack Gleason joined us in February of 2017. He was the building official for Weston. He's a Milford resident, and he's really been working out well. Also this year, we've formalized putting Dora Kubek in the position of a receptionist at the front desk, and it's a small position, but again, that has really, I think, helped to smooth and streamline the permitting process. People coming in the door will be greeted by one person. Dora's becoming very familiar with the workflow for various types of permits as you're coming through the door, and I just see in the coming year that continuing to improve, just the interface with the customers, and just by Dora gaining experience in that position. As I indicated, this year we also have implemented field inspections by the building inspectors, all being done electronically. They were utilizing these tablets that were purchased about 6 years ago. We've got them up and operating, use the quotes, air quotes for operating. We've had to make some, implement some
some changes in the way we like to see things done, but we are able to just consistently go out in the field using standardized templates. The building officials are using the tablets to generate their inspection reports. They are then transmitting them / emailing them back to the office, and then the office will then email them en masse to the contractors, to the applicants, to the subcontractors, whoever is on our list. That seems to be working out very well, in a very efficient way of getting our inspections done at a faster clip. Similarly, we're trying to expand and improve our use of view permit. That's really the main tool in our tool belt. We've had some problems, ongoing problems in dealing with view permit, but still through our standardized procedures, getting them into a format that view permit can handle, we are able to continue expanding our use of view permit. Go through all of these things. We have been, again, one of our main objectives in terms of reducing the costs of insurance along the shoreline is to reduce our CRS ratings, community rating system grade that we get through FEMA. This is, I mean, the goal, the objective is to get the lowest score possible. That will reflect on the reduced premiums for all the citizens that are paying flood insurance. The roadmap to that, to getting to that goal, a little bit sketchy, a little bit unclear, but it does involve working closely with the representatives from FEMA Region 1. We have been going through what's called a community assistant visit. It's an audit. They look through our records, raise questions, and responding back to them. We've had for the last 3 months, had a pretty robust dialogue going back and forth with the representatives. The objective is that at some point they will be able to tell their superiors that Milford is on a good path to compliance, and presumably that will result in a reduced CRS score for us, and get the resulting reductions in the insurance premiums.
And just as a little bit more background, Milford is one of, I think, 6 municipalities in the state of Connecticut that participates in the CRS. So Milford residents do receive a discounted rate for insurance, whereas not a lot of towns offer that.
We're looking to obviously get further reductions as we get our score down. Can I answer any questions?
Alderman Casey.
Thank you, through you. Thank you for coming in. Just a couple of questions. I think we talked last time about people there's certain permits people don't have to actually come in to parcels. I know part of it people didn't really know. Is that working out better? Understanding they don't need to come in? Is the process getting easier for the people that don't need to come in?
What we are doing is 2 things. Typically, as I just see anybody walking or waiting in our corridors to go to the building department to go ask what you're here for. If they're there for an electrical permit, if they're there for a plumbing permit, mechanical permit, I tell them, okay, are you aware that you can do that online? Some of them are, and they just want to come in and talk directly to the inspector, that's fine. Other people aren't aware. Dora is able to help them just go through the permitting process online. We are trying to expand that to include solar permits as well. We're getting a big influx of those. The trick there is that we can't bypass the zoning permit process, so we're trying to be very cautious in terms of expanding the online permitting. But we're trying to expand it. Again, it's working with that main tool in our tool belt, view permit. But we are able to do it, yes.
Just to follow up, I know this is kind of a general question, but you alluded to some of the challenges in the past. And can you give me an idea of this? I know it's not all permits are the same, it's more complicated, but roughly how much time does it take to get a permit? And historically, give me some perspective of how quicker it is, I assume, now than it was a few years ago. Do you have an idea?
There's a number of things going on. Number one, the inspectors that we have are all licensed professionals. They know what constitutes a code compliant set of documents, and we've encouraged them, we've been able to, again, we're not bypassing the building code or anything like that. They're able to issue over-counter permits. Again, the whole concept of we're permitting in land use that would imply that we're going to issue permits, that's what we're doing. In that regard, we are getting a number of, I'll say an increased number of over-the-counter permits generated. At the same time, as I alluded to it, I think not just this year, but in previous years, by standardizing if you will, checklists or what have you, the review process that we're going through in terms of the plan review. That's our assurance that we are still following the same procedure for every single application, that they're all getting reviewed for certain aspects of the code, and that if necessary, they're getting kicked to Charlie Carell for further review, or getting kicked to me for further review. But I think in general, the building inspectors that are there at the counter or reviewing the permits that are coming out in online know that they've got the ability and the procedure to get these things pushed through. At the same time, we are, I know, just through standardizing our plan review process, that expedites the whole flow. So again, as plans come in, we're able to review them. Again, without bypassing any code revisions, the plan reviews are generated, they're sent to Charlie, they're sent to me electronically, we're reviewing them that day. We're authorizing them to be then sent out to the applicant, and presumably issuing the permits in the same vein.
Just one final thought. I know it seems like there's been a lot of changes over the years, and I think hopefully a lot of positive changes. And what are some of the remaining challenges that your department faces? If you have to, give a quick, elevator speech, and what are some of the challenges that still exist?
A couple of things that we're trying to confront is, again, standardizing our workflow, utilizing the technology that we have and what we're anticipating that the technology will be. So again, we've been working with the view permit. I see that as having limitations. We're again working with MIS, exploring other programs that may be able to address our needs more efficiently. And then the other thing is that what we are trying to prepare for, I'm also on the Hazard Mitigation Committee. We're working with Bill Richards and every month meeting to discuss these issues. We as a department are trying to prepare better for the storm that will come, and how we respond to it and how we're able to respond. So I see that as another challenge that we're trying to deal with up front before it happens.
Thank you very much for your time.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to tell you how impressed I am with your department. I'm an inspections coordinator at Solar City, and I deal with lots of different towns, and I gotta say Milford is one of the easiest towns to get an inspection with. I also like the emails that come back after we pass an inspection. They come right to my email. It's really quick, it's same day. It's super impressive. I like that we're not using paper anymore, that they're going to the tablets. Because when I started at Solar City, we were getting papers all the time. And then I have to put them in the computer, and then I also keep a copy. And I like not having all that clutter. So that's good. And I also like that when we're going to have an inspection, that morning they post what time the inspector's going to go out. So that's made it a lot easier. And I just have also just a quick question with Mr. Gleason. Are we getting him full-time, or is he still going to be working for Weston?
I think, well, we have him full-time, so he's coming in at 7:30 and he's leaving at 3:30, which was hours. He had been, and I don't think he's doing it anymore, he had been working with Weston in the afternoon to kind of get them transitioned to their new building official. So we've always had him. He was hired full-time. He has been full-time. And I think he's transitioning out of kind of getting Weston off of his office back.
And I also wanted to say that everybody down at the office, Christine and Dora, everyone's so friendly. And when I'm trying to get an inspection, they're just super helpful. So I gotta say, I'm like, super impressed with how Milford goes through getting inspections done.
Thank you. I'll let them know your comments. Thank you.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I mentioned the 5,500 for the new tablets, and I think it's great that you're moving to the technology and paperless aspect of it. The question I had, though, is there's also a line item for 5,200 for computer and 1,000 for software. Could you talk about those and how they're different from the tablet money that you're going to be using?
Yes, what we're trying to do is, so we have 13 stations in our office, desktops, and so what we're trying to do is to rotate the old ones out and replace those on an ongoing basis. There are programs that we'd like to have budgeted for that are specific graphic programs that would be useful for our building officials. When we talk about the paperless workflow that we're trying to generate, ultimately some of these other programs, graphics programs, if you will enable us to specifically take in an electronic set of documents, PDFs, if you will, review them, make comments regarding our code compliance on those, have those comments show up on the drawings themselves through this program, but then also have those comments show up in our database in terms of issues that we looked at. And then again, the whole objective here is, again, it will be a huge cost to the applicants alone, without talking about just the paper that we have to handle and the inconvenience that is. But the cost of one of these sets of 30 or 40 sheets of drawings and asking them to submit 5, 10, or sets of these drawings at a time, be a big savings to just the applicant if we can get ourselves transitioned into an electronic document procedure. So that's what we're trying to get to with these things. It's not going to happen overnight, but that is the objective.
Sounds like a great objective. It'll definitely help with the improvements in the architecture. Thank you.
Alderman Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and it is nice not to have any complaints from the building department. It has been apparently going well, and I appreciate that. I have a question about permitting fees. You're projecting for the end of this fiscal year about $805,000 on the sheet paper.
Yeah, and again, we carry over, just comparing 4 quarters to 4 quarters, we carry over the final quarter of 2016, 2015, 2016.
And that may partially, but let me make sure I understand. This is strictly building inspection fees, right? We're not talking about any wetland fees. We're just talking about the inspection fees.
The building permit fees, yes. The cost of construction.
All right. And maybe you're getting, but I think I'll go to the finance director, maybe the mayor. I noticed that on our revenue, when we look at building inspection fees, we're projected at $675 into the general fund. Just on that, I think for the previous fiscal year, 620. And I think you mentioned page 6. So in the previous year, if I'm looking at this right, we did about 900,000 in building inspection. So when we budget this, we budget low in the event. Is that the thought process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. We take a conservative approach and try not to overestimate the revenue.
But I am correct that previous year, 904,000 we achieved.
I think that's based on the amount of deposits that yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Bevan. You already got your question answered? That's great. Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Joe. Just a couple of questions.
Sure.
All of our residents at the shores that were impacted by the storms, are they, through FEMA and whatever, are they being taken care of, or are people still falling through the cracks, or are we satisfied that they are satisfied in the process.
In my position, I mean, I will see the projects that become problems, and so I do see people that are struggling with getting grant funding through FEMA, through the state. More than once we've seen projects in which people have been pursuing their funding. They go through the process of developing their construction documents to get their permits put in place, and find out that just the cost of construction associated with doing things through the grant process has increased the cost. So they even with the grant, they're unable to make the project work. So I can't say. So in answer to your question, yeah, there are still problems out there.
But are we satisfied as a city that we are doing the most that we can for them and helping them through the process?
As much as we can, yes, and absolutely. I think, as I say, things come to my desk. I'm working with zoning, within the wetlands, with the building officials, and specifically looking for any kind of excesses that might be in there. We can't tell people what to do. We can't tell architects and engineers how to design something. But if something is implied that, hey, the code is requiring this, or zoning regulations require this, and we find that not true, we will notify the owner, the applicant, that monies don't need to be spent that way.
Because I am hearing that there is still some dissatisfaction within some of the areas and some people, and some of the residents. Maybe that's beyond that point, at your point, or beyond your scope. But I have heard that whether it's got to be on an individual case, I guess, as to how satisfied one is. But having said that, I'm really pleased with the communication, the improvement of the communication, the fact that even though that you don't think it is as efficient as it should be, the electronics are being used and hopefully improved on a daily basis, or at will anyway. But there is one question that I have pertaining to the budget. Line item 4476. There's a $5,000 line item for dangerous building costs. Could you help me understand what that means?
That's funds that we have in place, and as we are required, as we say condemn a building, as a building catches fire, and we have to have it boarded up or torn down or what have you, we've got this money in place that we can. Oftentimes it's not nearly enough, but it allows us to tap funds so that we can then pay contractors on behalf of the city to come in and do this, and then we will lean the property, what have you, and presumably get...
Just hit me wrong, then perception is dangerous building costs. I didn't know what that meant, so it's helping secure the building, making it safe, more safe. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, as a follow-up to Alderman Vitale, that's one of those accounts that rolls over into a reserve fund, so that, if there is the need to utilize that $5,000 1 year to utilize it, if not, it rolls over so that there is a reserve fund. So if the building official deems the structural integrity of a particular property not to be sufficient, he or she can order that property be taken down. Usually it happens as a result of a fire or something else where the building official comes in, and then the city pays for that property to be taken down immediately, and then the city liens that property.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the land use? Seeing none. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for all the questions.
Do we want to touch base on the zoning board?
Yeah, while you're here, absolutely. The next account you're going to be covering is the zoning board of appeals. Account number 4144, page 29.
I don't have a handout for that $8,900 budget here. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions pertaining to the zoning board of appeals? See nothing. You're all set, Joe.
Thank you very much
for answering all the questions. Next department on our agenda is account number 4215, Management Information Systems, MIS, page 39.
Good evening. My name is Jean Lysak. I'm the coordinator for the MIS department. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about my budget for this year, upcoming year.
Does anyone have any questions for the MIS department? I guess not.
Thank you.
I guess everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to know about the MIS department. Thank you, Gene. Thank you for the work you do for the city. The next department on our agenda is department number 4193, Public Library, page 35.
Oftentimes, I know in difficult budget times, libraries sort of, I thought it was a fluff department, a little bit of an extra. And I just sort of want to make my case that that's really not true. For years, libraries have been addressing and filling critical community needs that remain after federal, state, and local budgets are cut. We're the proverbial cleanup crew. We run free early literacy programs so that when state and federal and local programs are cut, our youngest citizens can still learn how to read. We invest in computers in order to close the digital divide for people of all ages. We open our doors and set up free information and enrollment centers for things like Access Health CT, Disabled Veteran Services, and ESL services. We provide research materials for students and lifelong learners. We help those seeking employment, but employment center hours are reduced and job training programs are cut. And no less important, we provide cultural and entertainment programs and materials which are imperative to our appreciation of literature and the humanities, and vital for those that may not have the resources to fund them themselves. Libraries are a good return on investment, especially during times of widespread state and municipal funding cuts. Milford spends $28.31 per capita on library services. I will tell you that is in the bottom third of library municipal spending in the state. So with all that, though, I think we can really get a good return here in Milford. This past fiscal year, we had over 159,000 visitors. And I'm going to say, I think that's a low number. Our door counter doesn't work all that well. And when we have story time in the morning, we routinely get 50 or 60 kids at story time. When they all come through the door, it doesn't register all at the same time. This past year, we lent out over 230,000 items. That's over 900 items every day that we are open. We presented 754 programs for children and adults, and that brought in almost 22,000 people. That's 22,000 people that came to see programs or take classes at the library. We scheduled almost 20,000 computer sessions at our public computers, and we answered about 36,000 reference and research questions. So, this time and age, facts do matter, and people want answers. Excluding our contractual salary increases, the budget before you is slightly less than 1% increase over last year, and is only 0.56% of the proposed city budget. I've asked for funding increases in our bibliomation line item and in our database line item. Both of those increases are offset by cuts in other lines. So totally, it was a $3,500 operational increase. What those have done for us, the consortium membership has opened up library catalogs of over 60 other public libraries in the state, plus special and school libraries. Since we've gone on with that system, our monthly circulation has gone up over 16% from this time last year. We've really been increasing a great deal. I know that other departments are facing a really difficult year, and we we are facing not just municipal flat level funding, but the library is also facing cuts in both the state and federal level. So services that we currently get from the state are Borrow It program, which allows users to take materials out from any other library in the state, and the Deliver It program, which is the one that returns the materials to any library in the state, are both on the chopping block at the state library. Those are two of our most popular services, and I think they're a model for retail cooperation that everybody should be following. If those get cut, we're going to have to find some way to make up those funds so that we can provide that service to our residents. I truly believe a vital active library is an essential part of a progressive community. Libraries attract businesses, they improve residents' lives, and they're one of the only institutions that are open to all residents, cradle to grave, and bind the community together. And that's all on less than 1% of the total budget for the city. So I really ask for your support in the budget that I provided, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the library starting to notice maybe less people coming in because of the internet, and you can get books online and then they come, you can download them right to your phone. I'm just wondering how much the library is being accessed anymore with the technology that is out there. I mean, even kids are allowed to use their phones in school now to look up different facts on history and things like that. So I'm wondering how much your library is being utilized.
Well, I think our attendance figures and our program attendance figures really speak to the fact that the library is being used. Yes, a lot is available online, and a lot of what we do is, a lot of what we offer is online. All of our databases are available mostly remotely, a few you have to come into the building for. And we also offer downloadable ebooks and audiobooks. But a lot of those services that you talk about are paid services. Not everybody has the financial resources to go to Amazon and buy a book and download it. Not everybody has a public computer. Nowadays, a lot of the kids can't afford a computer at home. They might be able to afford a phone, but you can't type a paper on a phone. Our public computers are in use from the minute we open the door to the minute we close. We have public printing, so that when the kids come in, they can actually print their papers off. They may not have a printer at home. So, everybody had said as the internet went up that libraries would sort of get less use. It's actually proven almost the opposite. Downloadable ebooks have brought people back to reading. Our print circulation statistics are up. And they've been up ever since ebooks came on the fore. So I think it's just bringing people back. It's a different format, but it's not affecting library services at all, if not to increase them a little bit more. People need community. You can be at home and you can be reading your book and you can be trying to look something up on the internet, but that doesn't mean you can evaluate what you find on the internet. In order to give you that sense of community and connection with somebody else that actually being in the building does.
Alderman Shaw.
Thank you. Just quickly, you made mention of the possible state cuts. But you mentioned the Borrow It program and the Deliver It program. And you said if that's cut, you would have to make up. Do you know what that dollar amount that you would be looking for if those programs were to go away?
No, it's really one of the biggest topics of conversation on how it's managed across the state. The Borrow It program is a reimbursement program. So currently we get funds from the state based on a formula for the amount of materials we loan to non-residents. And it's to compensate for lending our materials out from our staff time. That one would be fairly easy for us to absorb. The Deliver It system, we don't know. The different libraries are looking at different models, whether it's a further reduced delivery system still provided by the state. I will tell you as an example, before they did budget cuts, we used to get 5-day-a-week delivery of materials. We are now getting 2-day-a-week delivery of materials, and sometimes that is even cut if they have a driver that's absent. There's 9 drivers that deliver material throughout the state. Consortial libraries are discussing whether we might be putting on fees to add on to some type of state delivery, but it is still up in the air. Services will not go back to what they were.
I just want to follow up, and I don't need it now, but the numbers that you have provided, 754 programs, 159,000 visitors that you can account for, maybe more, that's an increase you've been able to follow this year after year? Is there a trajectory?
Oh, yeah.
And do we have that, or can you share that at some point?
Just as an example, 754 programs in 2016. 2014, we did 443 programs. 2010, we did 359 programs. So our programming is going up, the amount of programs. The attendance, 21,960 this year. 2014, it was 17,939. 2011, it was 13,000. The numbers are going up. People are coming in. Computer usage, 19,000 this year, it was 17,000 in 2014, 15,000 in 2007. The numbers are going up. Many people are feeling a financial pinch in their home life. So when they're feeling a financial pinch, they're looking for services at the best rate that they can. And as a municipal public library, we provide free services.
I think the other thing I'd ask, and thank you for sharing that, is if the board can get a copy of that. I think it would be very useful.
How about this? Sure.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Evening, how are you? Tell me something, when we have a preschool story time program or something to affect the older children at any point in time, are parents required to stay with the children?
They are. In Milford, we require the parents to stay. Our story hour room is a little bit set off from the children's department, so the parents are there. But in case the kids need to leave the room for any reason.
Thank you.
Alderman Frank Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe Chris. As along with Alderman Grant, one of the two liaisons to the public library, I never want to miss the opportunity to recognize and acknowledge all the great work you do, Chris, and how the library has come so far in terms of all of the things it does as a civic institution. When Alderman Golden asked you before, that was my same intuition. Was with, I got a Kindle the same day I went to my first liaison meeting, and I thought, what's this mean for the future of libraries? But there was somebody here on Wednesday night at the public hearing, and I think he was coming to. There were a couple of people actually coming to talk about the school budget, but they doubled back to come and one of them lives right across the street from the library. And his observation was, I never expected to see the amount of traffic. We know from our meetings, you have clicks on the door, how many people are coming in and out the door. But kind of counterintuitively, the more information is available now at home electronically, the more it seems to be the need for the community service and the informational services that the public library provides. As you mentioned, Chris, earlier, in terms of revenue from the city, the Milford Public Library is in the bottom third percentile in terms of funding. Some libraries are foundation funded, like in Stratford, where they have an ongoing private foundation that helps to fund them. We do it all with city money. And all of the things, literacy, so all the things that you mentioned before, the children's department, it's always crowded. The computers, as you said, this is a real thing. We all take it for granted. We have them at home, we have laptops, but a lot of students, a lot of the students in Milford don't have that. The library provides that service. The other thing is, and you always point this out, is that the library doesn't do it alone. The Friends of the Library, Ann Boland and that group, have been so instrumental in helping to support and really promote the interests of the library above and beyond what the city provides. And I'd like to put that on the record, how much the Friends of the Library have been an essential part of the life of the Milford Public Library. And also the board, Linda Winowski and everybody on the board are always very committed to the best interests, and I think are inspired by the hard work and all of the great innovative work that you've been doing for the library since you came on. It was a great day for the Milford Public Library when you joined as our director. One quick question, you meant bibliomation. This is the since the last time this is the second year we've been back to bibliomation. Is that correct, or this is the end of the first year? I forget.
We went live on bibliomation in mid-August.
Okay, so it's relatively new. You said you had to cut a couple of other items or reduce items in order to make up that difference. What are those items?
That's not actually accurate. Our last ILS system was paid for out of a separate account, was paid for out of the computer software fund. Bibliomation is actually less expensive for us to be a member than it was for us to be a standalone library on ILS. But we now have a separate line item for bibliomation, which we didn't have before. Last year we had $1. This year we moved money into that to actually pay for the full bibliomation services out of that account. So you'll notice our computer software account has been decreased because the funding that used to pay out for Cersei Dynax, a whole system, is now in the bibliomation account.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, Chris, can you just give us just a brief overview of what bibliomation is part of a statewide service?
Sure. Bibliomation is a library consortium. It's a group of now 62 public libraries, a number of school libraries, a number of special libraries and academic libraries that all share the same library catalog. We share some centralized services such as cataloging and purchasing abilities. So we've all banded together so we get discounts on our purchasing. So what it does now for our residents is that when they use our library catalog or look up materials, they're not just looking at stuff that Milford owns, they are also looking at things that all of the other libraries own, and then they can easily request them to have them sent to Milford for pickup, or they can go to that owning library and pick it up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chris, for all you do and your staff. What a great job you do for the city and for the Milford Public Library.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for you. Along with Alderman Smith, being ways out to the library, we get to see firsthand all the amazing work that you and your staff does. I really just want to compliment everything that you're able to do with the small amount that you're provided. And with that, I really just want to encourage all of our residents to take advantage of the library and see what it has to offer and see all the new things that have been available now, especially with the online services that you've spoken about. Being able to download the ebook right from the library instead of Amazon is a service that I think absolutely more of our residents should know about and take advantage of. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. I would also say, just as some of our other added services, we do now have a maker space. If you haven't been in, we give 3D printing classes and training to learn how to use a 3D printer. It's available for the public to use. We are partnering up with a number of other city departments and offering programs, informational programs and instruction. So as Alderman Grant said, if you haven't been in the library and you're not aware of some of the services we might provide, I would encourage you to come by and I'd be happy to show you around. Any other questions?
Any more questions for the Chris? Alderman Giannatasio.
Just being that we're on the subject of all the great things that you do, I was interested in the small business owners take seminars in the library. Can you just elaborate on that quickly, please?
We have a number of different business seminars, some that have been put on by library staff and some that have been put on by the Economic Development Commission. We are a small business development center partnering with the state of Connecticut so that people can come in, check out the state of Connecticut provided laptop and get one-on-one mentoring through the Small Business Development Center of the state. So that's been a popular program. But throughout the year, we're actually having a Job Career Plus van comes in next month to provide one-on-one job search and job hunting skills. We have online resources, one called Job USA, Ref USA, and Job Now, that provide online one-on-one mentoring for business skills. So we've got quite a few different areas that we deal with for business development.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any more questions for the public library account? Seeing none, thank you very much, Chris, for your presentation and answering all the questions. You've done a great job you're doing for the city. You and your staff.
Yes,
Next department on our agenda is Department number 4153, Park, Beach, and Recreation Commission.
Good evening. My name is Dan Warlock. I'm the
Chairman of the Park Beach and Recreation Commission. Seated next to me is Mr. Paul Piscatelli, the Director of the Recreation Department for the City of Millbrook. As you can see, my budget is very simple for the Park Beach and Rec Commission. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for your 25th anniversary on the Park Beach and Recreation Commission. I think that's a fantastic job you're doing. Anyone have any questions for the Park Beach and Recreation? Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. Dan, just help me understand something. Property upkeep in the commission has priority over trees, shrubs, and lawn?
What that money is used for is sometimes we have to replace trees on Milford Lane. We very seldom use that account, but we have used it in the past. And it's also an account that we use in case we have to replace one or two shrubs or plant new shrubs. For instance, at the new YMCA establishment that we have coming.
Okay.
Any more questions for the Park Beach Recreation Department? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next department while you're sitting there. The number 4620, Recreation Department, page 82.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before I entertain any questions, I just want to make you aware that the State of Connecticut is once again contemplating raising the minimum wage $1 over the course of the next 5 years, which will equate to another 48% increase in the minimum wage for that time period. Just for a little historical reference, since 2009, minimum wage has gone up 60.67% in the state of Connecticut. My seasonal temporary wage account, where you know we pay all of our summer staff, lifeguards, and the playground counselors, since 1999 it's gone up. Minimum wage has gone up 68.62%. So during that same time frame, the seasonal temporary payroll account has only gone up 39.7%. So we're at the point where we can't do it anymore. Those two numbers now become dangerously close to each other. And going forward, an increase in the seasonal temporary account is going to have to be made. Otherwise, we're going to have to reevaluate what services we offer to the residents. That being said, I'll take any questions on this year's budget.
Alderman Casey.
Thank you. Through you. I think we bonded for this, but I just had a question about the tennis courts. I see the work's been done on Anderson and Fowler. Is that being replaced, or what's the status of those courts?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Casey. So that money was bonded to redo the 3 locations: Eisenhower, Baldwin Field, Anderson Avenue. Anderson Avenue has had some cracks in it, or Fowler Field and Eisenhower Park had not been redone in probably 20 to 30 years. So what we did is we took it down to sub-base and started all over again. Tomorrow they're going to be putting the final paved surface at Eisenhower Park, and then they'll be moving to Fowler Field and to Anderson Avenue. I anticipate that once that's done, it's got to cure for a while before the paint and the lines are put on, and the fencing is going to go up. I would think probably within 2 weeks we'll be able to open those courts again to the public.
Thank you. Just to follow up, the seasonal employees, you mentioned, what's the breakdown? I mean, are they mostly lifeguards, or just an idea of who we're talking about?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Casey. So, summer playground counselor staff, we employ about 125 kids per summer. Lifeguards, we're in the 30 to 40 range. And then we also have Camp Happiness, our special needs program, which has approximately 40 to 50 counselors. So we're in a range of 225 to 250 seasonal staff in summer. And then we also have a core of about 15 staff that supervise our gymnasiums and our buildings during our evening, winter, fall, and spring activities.
Thank you, appreciate your answers, thank you very much.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Who uses cell phones in the amount of $3,600?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Williams. So those are department cell phones. We have 5 cell phones in our department. Each of our supervisors have one. That's the yearly fee for 5 cell phones a month for 12 months.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Paul, what is the minimum wage now for these people? For minimum wage anyway?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Vitale, the current minimum wage, which just went up on January 1st of this year, is $10.10 an hour.
And if you were to, what impact would it have if that line item got cut a little bit?
I'm sorry,
what impact would it have if that line item got cut a bit?
It would be devastating if it got cut.
Well, Tom, can you elaborate on how it would impact the...
Well, we would have to minimize the number of days we're on the beach for our lifeguard service. We would have to close buildings at night and reduce the number of activities we offer. We would have to limit the number of kids that could participate in our summer playground program, so we have the right ratio of students to counselors.
So it would be impactful. My next question is the fact that on parking, does that go to the general fund or you get the parking at the beach? Does it go to recreation?
Beach parking goes to the general fund.
Thank you.
Alderman Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on that, on the beach parking, I noticed that it's kind of in half the fees that we were projecting to collect, if I'm reading it right. That you're projecting 40,000 in fees, like the year before was 82, and I can't remember the reason for that.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Shaw. So as you know, the fee went from $5 to $15 this year. While the revenue increased, the volume of cars remained relatively the same. So that's the increase in that fee. The projection for next year is based on the historical average of the previous 3 years of beach parking. Now, last year was a great summer. I couldn't tell you how many times it rained, but you put in 2 weekends of rain, and our beach parking revenues dropped significantly because people aren't going to the beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Piscatelli. Good evening. I just wanted to maybe have a little more understanding about your perspective on the minimum wage. It seems like it is continuing to go up. When we look at national news, we see that there are other states that are following suit, and I think the projected high end could be up to $15 an hour at some point. And based on your managing the expectation, it sounds like, right away we would have to limit use of our beaches and eliminate programs at night and things like that. I don't think that the residents of Milford are really interested in doing that. I think that you've built up a very significant following. I know that you offer a lot of different types of programs. So wouldn't it make more sense maybe if this was to become the new reality that we would look at what we're charging for these programs and increase the fees rather than start cutting programs altogether? I just wanted to get some feedback from you on that.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Giannatasio. So I agree. We do not, the Recreation Department does not want to cut programs. We've always tried to provide the best service to the most amount of residents for the least amount of money. That being said, with the minimum wage increasing as it has and, projected to increase some more, we are going to have to be creative as to how we do things. We've worked with the finance department currently this fiscal year because we're coming dangerously close to running out of seasonal temporary money currently. So could there be options of how to get around it? Yes, there could be. It's just how feasible those options are and then at what price point is the breaking point. People come to us because, one, of the experience and two, because of the price. If the price was to change, what was that fluctuation going to be and is it going to be detrimental to, now we're not going to be making as much money as we were before to even offset that increase.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. The minimum wage that we currently show for your budget is what we have here from the Board of Finance. If that were to, if we were to approve that figure, where would we run into problem when the minimum wage goes up after our budget has been approved?
Mr. Chairman, you Alderman Vecchiarelli, correct. This number was based on $10.10 minimum wage. The current rate, the increase as of January 1st would bring it to $11. So I would most likely have to come back after January 1st looking for some more funds. You have to remember too that 80% of this $350,000 gets spent in 6 weeks. And from July 1st to the middle of August is when our programs are the most active and when we spend that money. So we'll have enough to cover that programming, but when we get into the fall sports and the winter basketball season, which runs from December till the end of March, and then the indoor volleyball and open gym and swim lessons and all those things that occur, the other basically 46 weeks of the year is where we're really managing it tight as it is now. So if it was to go up again, it would really put us in the hole.
So if I'm to understand then, probably January 2018, minimum wage should probably go to $11 an hour, which we're kind of looking at.
That's what the discussion is in Hartford, correct?
And so we would then be looking at, a pretty good size deficit. What I can't quite understand, with that being known, every other department, that has a contractual wage agreement, and we realize that, and the wages are increased to meet that account. I don't quite understand why, you've basically met two other meetings and still, we're at the 350 now. When you asked for like the budget request, you put the figure in at 350, which is just moved on to the mayor and to the finance board. At that particular time, was it known? Did you know that we might be having to go up $1 an hour? Is that why, you didn't put it in your request?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Vecchiarelli. So at the time my number was put in, I was not aware of the budget proposed legislation in Hartford. I've always asked for, the number on this book is not what my original ask is, but, through discussions prior, that's the number that it ended up being.
Okay, it behooves me that, we know it's coming. The minimum wage, we're looking to pay $1 more an hour. recognize it's going to be going up, and in my opinion, this board here should reflect that 6 months, $1 more an hour for those number of employees, which is what maybe by 175 employees, something like that. But if you were to have an estimate of how much more you would need in that account to cover, you know, those 6 months of that, do you have a figure that you would have to put in there to make that?
$31,188.12.
Okay.
For this January. Thank you.
Any more questions for the Recreation Department? Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Paul. Having said all that about wages, I think it's common sense that there's got to be adjustment in fees going forward. I mean, when you begin to take next spring sports or after that January 1st, because it doesn't look like you're going to maybe get another $30,000. I don't know that for a fact. But obviously, common sense says that, you know, there's got to be some adjustment to fees in the programs in order to make them work. I'm sure no matter what the fee increase would be, it's probably still less than what people would pay going somewhere else to play ball or other leagues and whatever. I'm just assuming that, and I don't know that for a fact. But the fact is, I think that you should have, and I'm sure you do, have some sense of adjustment to fees in the future because of this deficit.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Vitale. Yes, to answer your question, we do, and we have some other ideas of what we're going to do this summer to hopefully mitigate what may occur come January.
Just one more question. I know you basically handle camp happiness. Does the Board of Education have any play in that?
They do not. They used to, and then going back, and I'm not exactly sure how many years ago, but when they had a budget situation, they stopped financing their portion of Camp Happiness. And if you remember, it usually is a 6-week program. There were a couple of years when Director McCarthy was here that they knocked it back down to 5 weeks to make up for that loss in
I think that goes back 10, 15 years as far as the Board of Education having a share in that anyway.
Perhaps you may be right, yes.
Thank you.
Any more questions regarding the Recreation Department? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. It's just more of a comment. I just wanted to share this with you. You might want to start raising those fees to start managing this expectation, because I'm pretty confident that it's probably going to go up another $1. And I know from experience, for example, the Harbor Commission didn't raise their fees forever, and then when it was time to raise their fees, they got a lot of backlash. Oh, you know, your fees have been the same for years, year after year. So I think people need to start getting accustomed to the economic environment. So I would recommend that you probably start working on that sooner than later. Thank you.
Alderman Beccarelli.
Thank you. I forgot to say, thank you for the good job that you do for the citizens of Milford. The young and the old, you do a remarkable job, and you make the quality of life in Milford so much better for so many people, and I thank you for that. Thank you.
Any more questions for the Recreation Department? Seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. Dan and Paul, thank you for the great job you guys do for the city of Milford. Keep up the good work. Next department on our agenda is the golf course. Department number 4121. Yes. Dan, are you going to take care of it?
I'll take care of the golf.
All right.
Commissioner DeGosta can't make it tonight. So as you can see, excuse me, the golf course is an enterprise fund. We have basically the different accounts that have been the same for a long time now. The only difference we did this year is we took $2,000 out of the maintenance and repair and put it into the water account. So if anybody has any questions on the budget or on the golf course, I'm happy to try to answer.
Does anyone have any questions pertaining to the golf course? Seeing none, that's it. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next department on our agenda is account number 4116, for Government Access Television, MGAT, page 16.
I'm currently serving as chair of the Milford Government Access Television Committee. The primary goal of MGAT is to make local government more accessible to the residents of Milford. MGAT provides our community with true, unbiased information, a record of what happens in meetings such as these that ultimately determine significant quality of life issues in our town. I came to my first MGAT committee meeting 2 years ago, not as a member, but as a constituent. At the time, I was asking the MGAT committee if they could consider creating a YouTube channel. As a working parent of a young child, 7 p.m. was an important time in my household. I had dinner, bath, and bedtime to focus on, which made it difficult for me to watch live government meetings on MGAT channels, let alone attend them. I explained to the committee that a YouTube channel of archived government meetings would allow me to watch these meetings on my phone or computer at a time and a place that was convenient to me. Thankfully, the committee agreed, and MGAT line producer Arnie Rogoff and I began working together to create the MGAT on-demand channel that now exists on YouTube. Soon after that first meeting, I was appointed to the MGAT committee, and 15 months ago I was elected as chair. I say this to you because I want you to know that I came to work with MGAT with the perspective and appreciation of a constituent, and that is still true today. I have a deep appreciation for MGAT's value to the community because I experienced that value firsthand. Last year when I came before this board, I explained that after I was elected chair of MGAT, I began looking under the hood, so to speak, at MGAT operations, how we are directing our resources in our production workflow and comparing our operations with those in neighboring towns. I found that there was a great need to upgrade the infrastructure of our operations, that MGAT was years behind in technology and systems currently in place in their towns. If you remember last year at this time, we were still broadcasting all our meetings on both channels from a DVD carousel. Since then, MGAT has made important steps forward. We invested in training for our line producer to enable him to utilize a previously acquired file server to broadcast our programming on the City Hall Channel 79. This file server enabled us to do away with the DVD carousel at City Hall and to schedule our programs to begin at specific times and to post our program schedule on screen in between our rebroadcasts. We also secured grant funding from the Area 2 Cable Advisory Council for a second file server for our Board of Ed studio. We hope to have this installed by the end of this current fiscal year. We have also recruited the assistance of some very talented volunteers to help with our broadcasts. I'd like to recognize Nick and Andrea Destall, who are here this evening. Nick is a high school student at Jonathan Law and is recording tonight's meeting. And his mother, Andrea, has also served as a volunteer to record our Board of Finance budget hearings. I personally have been trained to produce live broadcasts in the Board of Ed studio and now volunteer my time whenever the Board of Ed has a conflict with the Board of Aldermen and our live producer cannot be at both locations at once. I am very proud to say that this is the first year that MGAT has not missed a live broadcast of any of our Board of Ed meetings. This year, the MGAT committee has requested a $3,000 increase over last year's budget, moving total city support from $16,250 to $19,250. We greatly appreciate the support of Mayor Blake and the Board of Finance in approving this increase. We also appreciate the support of the 8 members of this Board of Aldermen who voted in support of increasing MGAT funding by the same amount at last year's budget deliberations. For the sake of comparison, you should know that we do have some room to grow. Our neighboring town of Fairfield will be funding its government access station, Fair TV, with $57,000 in this next fiscal year. Woodbridge is at currently $24,000, and Orange Government Access Television is operating with a budget of $72,000. It's also important to note that even with this increase, town funding will not fully cover our operating expenses in the coming year. Each year, we also apply for grant funding from the Area 2 Cable Advisory Council, otherwise known as the CAC. We compete for these grants with the communities I just mentioned. This funding is not guaranteed, and the amounts awarded can vary greatly. The CAC grants were originally intended to help communities purchase equipment for their government access TV stations. But in recent years, Milford's CAC grants have been spent almost entirely on labor costs. This is the first year in several years that a significant portion of our grant funding will be directed at equipment. With the purchase and installation of the file server for the Board of Ed studio that I mentioned previously. While we are making these steps forward, we still have significant issues in our workflow that necessitate additional investments in recording and editing equipment in the coming year. Due to outdated equipment used in editing our rebroadcasts, our post-production labor costs per meeting far exceed those in neighboring towns, and investments in infrastructure are the only ways for us to address this. Whether or not we will be able to make these investments depends on next year's level of grant funding from the CAC, and it's difficult to say what improvements we will be able to make in the next fiscal year. But my hope is that we will be able to secure funding to solve some of our workflow issues in at least one of our studios in the coming year. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Casey.
I think through you, just comparing, I guess it seems that Orange, Fairfield, Woodbridge, they have rather large budgets for MCAT. Do they have additional paid staff members? How sizable are their staff?
Yes, they do. They have their staff. The staff in Fairfield is a supervisor, manager, and he contracts out. They record about 12 meetings a month in Fairfield. The supervisor is a 1099 contract employee, and he also brings in additional staff. He records 5 or 6 meetings a month, plus oversees management of the studio and then contracts out for additional meetings. Same thing in Woodbridge. They do not have a 1099 employee, they have a city employee who works part-time and pays students part-time. In Orange, they have about 3 staff members on their crew.
We currently just have one paid 1099. So we do more. Well, we do something comparable to one employee right now.
Something comparable with one employee, correct. And it's not an employee, it's a 1099 contractor. But we're at 5 meetings per month, but we also try to do all of our budget hearings, which is another 10.
Thank you.
Kara, did you just say that these budget meetings that are all scheduled are going to be broadcast live?
No, because we only have Arnie is the only only person who broadcasts live from City Hall. The equipment in that studio is more complicated than what's in our Board of Ed studio. It's also more sensitive. We've had issues with, I don't know if you've noticed on the channel recently, we've had some issues with the broadcast. Some of the cabling is very sensitive. So we were really reluctant to train a volunteer. Arnie was very reluctant to train me to do the broadcast because, you know, we're not quite there yet. So hopefully someday. I mean, my goal is that we have backup in all of our studios. That's my goal. But tonight we're recording it, and Arnie will be editing it into a rebroadcast, so it will air on the channel.
You're going to try to do that for the rest of the budget meetings that are scheduled?
All of them, we have volunteers in place for all the meetings. We respect Arnie's, Arnie observes Passover, and there's 5 budget meetings that we will not have him here to record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Carol. Good evening. I would assume that the government cable service is the grant.
Yes.
Are
Government cable service? What was the question?
I would assume that the government cable service is a grant.
Government cable services, as listed in this budget, is town funding for government cable services. That's what Milford is investing in. Actually, the grant does not appear in this budget, so I'd be happy to provide you.
Okay, so the grant, let's talk about the grant that's not appears in the budget.
Exactly, yeah.
Are those funds restricted in any way, number one?
Some of them, it depends on how I apply them. So this last year, I did specify that a certain portion of it was going to be designated for a file server, and a certain portion of it would be for additional costs, which were labor. But we didn't specify labor, but about 20,000 of it is for labor, and the other 12,500 was for file server.
You had indicated the fact that the equipment is archaic. Some equipment is archaic. Can you spend any of that money on capital equipment?
Yes, I actually went to the last cable advisory committee meeting too, because since then I've met with 3 different vendors, all of which have given me 3 different proposals of what we should do. So I met with I went to the last CSC meeting and said, if I want to change how some of this is broken down, is that permissible? And they said yes, but I'll have to submit a request. So we're working through some of these proposals through committee to see how this can break down.
So you do have a priority list of equipment that you'd like to purchase through some of that grant money?
Yes, the priority right now is the file server, because that severely limits what we can put on the channel. Without the file server, we can't schedule anything. We're only limited to 5 trays of DVD carousel. But as vendors have submitted their proposals, they've looked at our studio and said, you have a lot of work to do. And so they're adding in their proposals additional equipment, some of which we will have to put off until the next fiscal year, probably.
Thank you. And the other question is the fact that the $17,950 that you're getting from the city, that obviously, I guess, doesn't cover all the costs.
No.
And when you talk about Fairfield and the other towns that do a lot more productions, does our Board of Education in any way share some of those expenses, number one? Number two, what is the cost of programming what is the cost per production of a meeting? And how many hours does it take to complete from beginning to finish of that particular program?
Well, we've done a lot of work looking at that recently. First, to answer your first question, at this point, the Board of Ed does not make any hard contributions to MGAT, any hard cost contributions. However, they have been very amenable to some of our requests lately. We currently record our Board of Ed meetings from a cabinet in a closet. And in order to accommodate some of these upgrades, we need to move to a bigger space. And they are, Mr. Bradbury and Mr. Vitelli have helped us locate another closet, but a bigger closet on the opposite side of the studio. And they're going to help us make that space ready to make that studio, to upgrade that studio. So they've been supportive in that respect. To answer your question about the cost of a meeting, this is something I worked really hard to pin down, and it does vary greatly. But after looking at many, many invoices and trying to find an average of what it costs us, we now arrived at a number I think is about 11 hours per meeting. That's where we are right now. So a meeting could be 1 hour, most of our meetings are under 3 hours. That allows for about 8 hours of post-production time. I know.
11 hours for one production.
11 hours for one production, so the cost of which is about $275 per meeting. We and get the rate that we're invoiced is at $25 per hour. So just if you're curious as to why it takes so long, right now the only method by which we record the live broadcast is a DVD player, a DVD recorder, HD DVR. And then that DVD has to be burned, and that DVD has to be ripped into an editing software that takes encoding time, and then In the editing software, apparently, as it has been explained to me, there we had the crawl, we had the front slate, the end slate. Sometimes we cut out the executive session. And then that file is converted to another format, which is then dragged onto the file server. So that file has to be loaded onto the file server. That takes time, and then programmed into the broadcast.
So if I could sum that up, it costs about $275 to produce a show such as this.
That's where we're at right now.
It takes 11 hours from filming to putting it on TV.
To the best of what I've been able to assess, yes.
Thank you.
But, yeah. My hope is that we can move to a completely file-based workflow that will eliminate so many of these steps. But again, these are investments that are significant, and if I'm having trouble getting labor costs, it's hard to find $7,000 or $8,000 for new equipment. So.
Thank you.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Evening, Kerry. As you know, I've learned more about MGAT in the past few weeks, taking an interest in some of the issues that are confronting you, and I certainly do, as I told you, applaud all of the good and innovative work you've been doing to try to move MGAT forward. I was on this board in the last century when we introduced the resolution creating MGAT, and it has transformed the way people relate to the local government. I hear this all the time, and we kind of joke about it, that people do watch MGAT, but they do, and it is a different environment because of MGAT. I guess the question is, it isn't always, you're being put in a position to decide between what would probably be a single line operator position, a technical person is the only paid contractor within MGAT, and trying to cover that expense in addition to all of the new equipment,
right,
the file server and things that you said we desperately need. But I think the question really is, of all those towns you mentioned, Orange, Fairfield, Woodbridge, with the exception of Fairfield, we're talking about a municipal contribution 4 times what we're doing here in Milford for a town that's about, maybe, a fifth of the size. I know you said they do 10 meetings a month or whatever it is, but when I look at it, the comparison, it's just, why is Milford, which is probably population-wise comparable to Fairfield, so underfunded in this regard? It's just because we started low and we've been trying to catch up, and meantime we're battling over what little money is there. Obviously, this is not a good year to look for new ways to increase funding to MGAT, but I certainly would point out to my colleagues here, all of whom I'm sure use MGAT service to review our meetings and so forth, what we can do to make it a more efficient and a more wide-ranging provider of services to the city of Milford. You get $25,000 about from the cable count.
So that is, it's really hard to say what we'll get from the Cable Advisory Council. They have $100,000 of grant money that all towns compete for. And so it really depends on what the needs of other towns are in relationship to our town and what we've gotten in the past. So just to let you know where we stand this year, last year, out of that $100,000, we were awarded $32,000 out of that $100,000, and that is compared to what Orange, Stratford and Bridgeport are also entitled to this money. They haven't applied recently. They may do this this year. Fairfield, Orange, Woodbridge, Bridgeport, Stratford, and Milford. Those 6 municipalities compete for $100,000. So it's very hard to say what our award will be. Again, we did get a nice chunk last year with the intention that would be used to make some of these upgrades that I mentioned. But we're still using a significant portion for labor costs, and the CAC does not take kindly to this. When they see other towns funding their labor costs at 90%, at a level of 90% or 100%, and they look at Milford and they say, look, your town is only funding your labor costs at 50%. They can't really justify awarding us such a significant amount. So what I've been told is that we really need to cut down on our labor costs. They don't want to fund it to that level anymore, or the town needs to contribute more. It's really one of the above has to happen. Yeah. And then so this year, I'm hoping we can secure 20,000 to 23,000, 25,000 to stretch, because I know one other town is going to have to, it's their turn next year.
If I could, Mr. Chairman. So Orange, for instance, you mentioned, say they're getting $80,000 from the town of Orange, plus whatever. 75, 80, whatever.
I checked in with each town this year. Orange is going to get about
Now, you said they have a lot of volunteers, they have a lot of...
No, Orange is actually, they have a supervisor and they have a staff of 2 other support staff, no volunteers. They do a tremendous amount of programming. And the CAC, the grant funding they get from the CAC is only about $3,000.
Yeah, didn't they say give it to Milford?
Exactly. So
because they're so cheap.
Step up. Right, exactly.
Well, tell me this, do the paid contractors in the Orange Government Access Television, is that less than $35,000 or whatever we're paying our line operator now?
So in Orange, again, the $72,000 is mostly for labor costs, but I think, actually I did ask, he was kind enough to send me his budget if you're curious. Let me see if I have it handy here. In Orange, it's about $42,000 or $43,000 for the supervisor, and that's part-time. And then he has two support staff, 2 part-time support staff, an assistant line producer, and then somebody that also helps to report me.
So their aggregate labor costs are still, for a town, you know, a third of the size,
they're about 60.
with a budget that's 4 times what we have, do allocate not as much of a percentage of their total revenue, but more than we do. To produce this stuff, 10 meetings?
Yes.
I know they have more services.
They have about 10 or 12 meetings a month, but also they do more scripted content. Like they will go around the Orange Fair with a cameraman, and then they'll spend time in the studio editing a really nice documentary about the Orange Fair, and that will air on the channel. Like they have a much more flexibility and creativity with the content that they provide their constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kevin.
Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have to ask you about this grant, so I'm clear. When we realize the grant, what is the understanding? Can it be used for labor?
Yes.
Or it could? Or equipment? Either or?
Yes. So again, the intention with the CAC grant and what their hope is that this money is to provide towns with funds for equipment. But if we don't apply for funds for equipment, so just as an example, my predecessor in 2000, not last fiscal year, but the one before, when they applied for the grant, the full grant that they applied for was for labor costs. They didn't ask for money for equipment because they needed the money for labor. So in the absence of a grant request for equipment, they will fund labor. They don't like to do it. They would prefer to see that money going to equipment. And so again, it also depends on the request from other towns, what they need. And again, they will fund equipment over labor costs if there's an equipment need in the wider community.
Through your tenure, have you received the grant to date? Or you have?
Yes, so the grant of $32,000 was received, and we are spending a portion of that on labor currently, and we are considering proposals for the file server that we have, that we applied for.
Have we bought equipment that hasn't been used to date?
To date, all the equipment that we have now is in use. We have actually not purchased the file server. We have proposals that the committee is considering. But we hope to finish this business up by the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Kara, a couple of questions.
Yes.
I what I didn't ask before, are there any other grants out there that you can secure for the productions?
That is, not that I'm aware of, but I will keep looking. I mean, yeah.
Okay, and that's that's kind of a
I've thought about that, yeah.
piece. Do any of those towns that you talked about, mentioned, do any of the groups in those towns cost share the productions at all?
No.
So their television or productions are of the cost of the commission of the group. Have you had any comparison of production costs from Orange, from Fairfield? And can you share that? So if we're talking about our cost programming is $275 11 hours, how does that compare to other who are fully equipped and doing 21st century work?
Yeah, and actually the CAC pointed this out to me because when we report on our grant funding every year, they ask me to attach invoices of how much did you spend on labor, and when they reviewed the invoices, they were very concerned about how much time we were spending in production. And they said this is something that we're not going to pay for. You need to address this. So I asked the supervisor in Orange to send me his production log, and the post-production times are significantly less. I mean, I'm looking at a timesheet here, so it's hard to say exactly, but from what I understand, it's about 2 hours in post-production compared to 8.
At a rate of?
Let's see, what is his rate? He doesn't tell me how much the rate is. 26 an hour. And it's just...
So that would be approximately $50 for a program.
Well, that's just post-production. That's not the length of the program. So
total?
So total would probably be in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 hours.
Which would be
to 11.
100 or something, as opposed to 270.
Right.
Thank you.
Alderman Grant.
But again, I just want to make a mention, Orange has invested in their equipment.
Well, that's what I mean, 21st century equipment, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. And so, I mean, definitely sounds like all of this, the money issues seem to be from labor and the inefficiencies of the process that we're currently using because of the older equipment. And you mentioned earlier that you want to get into a fully digital file system, which would significantly drop the time that it would take to do the work. How much would it cost to get to that point where we'd be able to get the per production value down $150 to take it and make up for that?
So one proposal, the proposals have varied greatly. One was $60,000 for the Board of Ed studio with file server and all the production equipment. One I got today was a little more reasonable at $23,000. So I do have money set aside this year for a portion of that. So I do have a portion of the file server. So what I'm hoping is to roll in this additional equipment, $5,000 or $6,000 that I don't have this year into next year's grant. So I can do this in stages. So in answer to your question, one of our challenges is we have 2 studios. So we have to duplicate the processes. So it would be, it's really hard to say again, but at least for the Board of Ed studio with this one proposal that I'm considering, it's an additional $6,000 or $7,000 to increase the workflow in addition to the file server that we already have funding for.
Thank you.
Alderman Vaccarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kara, I have a couple of questions for you. Could you tell me right now, and I know you spoke a little bit about it, but does the Board of Ed give you any monies?
No.
They give you nothing?
Oh, actually, so they don't for our current budget, but I will say that there was a special request this year from the Board of Ed and last year to record the Board of Ed budget hearings. That was something that we had not budgeted for, and we said we would be able to cover those meetings if they could pay for our labor costs, which they did. So we did receive some funding from the Board of Ed for those specific meetings.
For how many meetings was that?
I think it was 2. One of them was very short.
Right now, the Board of Ed, compared to all of the other city recordings, how much time is spent on the Board of Ed compared to all the others?
The Board of Ed meetings are usually longer, they're over 3 hours, so the labor costs are a little bit higher. But the Board of Ed has 2 meetings a month, and in City Hall, we record 3 meetings currently. The Board of Aldermen meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay. When you talk about the grants, there's the cable council?
It's the Area 2 Cable Advisory Council, so Cable Advisory Council, abbreviated CAC for short.
And they get like 100,000 divided among 6 communities?
100,000, 6 communities, yeah.
Is there another grant? I mean, what was, is it CAT? Is that the cable?
CAC, that's the same grant. I was just abbreviating it for brevity.
Is that grant through the state?
No. It's actually based on, in relationship to Cablevision. Cablevision subscriber fees, yeah.
Okay, I got that. Could you tell me, what is your total budget for,
Total budget this year, we are at okay, so this year we have, with the grant funding and with let's see, with the grant, with the CAC grant is $32,554. The city has provided us with $16,250. That's currently what we have. I am also making some personal donations myself, I will say, to help get us to where we need to be with some of these upgrades.
Well, I must say, you do a remarkable job with the funds that you have available, and moving into the YouTube arena has really opened up the flexibility for people to not only look at these at a more leisurely time, but also to be direct. I mean, I've noticed that you can YouTube a meeting and be most concerned about the last hour, and you can zip to the last hour of the meeting and see it without having to watch,
right.
2 hours and hours of meetings. So it is really a nice, a nice thing. Right now, how many people do you have doing this? I know we have Artie, who's works in the other room, but besides him, who else puts this together?
We have Arnie, and I, as I said, have been trained to record or to broadcast live Board of Ed meetings, so it's me on occasion when Arnie needs help. And Nick and Andrea. Those are really the only people so far this year that have really put their hands in production. That's it.
And so we pay Artie, right?
Correct. Arnie's the only paid person.
Right.
Oh, I will say, I did actually hire a consultant, the operator from Fairfield. I felt like I really needed somebody to just give me an overview of where we are, so we put a little bit of money into having someone come in and basically audit our workflow, and he also helped train Arnie to use the file server that's currently in place in City Hall.
Some of the other communities that you may have information on, do their Board of Ed and, slash their city share the expenses?
So Orange and Woodbridge, those budgets are just for town meetings, and Amity High School does the Board of Ed work. I've been through one of their technical, I'm not exactly sure how it works out, but those budgets that I mentioned for Woodbridge and Orange do not even cover Board of Ed meetings. That it's the Amity Regional High School that takes care of that.
Oh, wow, that's quite a bit more money, and they're only covering half the city's expenses.
Right.
Okay, well, if you had a wish list, so to speak, and we were able to markedly improve our telecast to our taxpayers, what do you think would be a reasonable budgeted amount to do this? And we're basically talking labor, and as we go forward, I know we would have a wish list for the equipment, but understanding that we have very limited equipment and we have very limited labor. But if we were to have something reasonable, what is it that you think that we would need? I'll let you answer that the best you can.
Well, you mentioned wish list, so it's hard for me to really think, in big numbers, because I know that that's a very big wish. But my wish is really for the town of Milford to fund MGAT's labor costs completely. That I could seek grant funding for these upgrades that we need. The grant money's there for equipment. And if they were to see that, if the CAC could see Milford funding labor costs, completely funding of labor costs, operational costs, which would be, I think, in the coming year, in the past it's been as high as $38,000 for labor. This last year we're looking at $32,000 for labor costs. We've really tried to work very hard at reining in some of our production costs. So I guess that would be my wish, for me to come to the CAC grant cycle and say, look what Milford's done. They funded our operations cost completely this year. So what that would mean is that we know that we can record the meetings that we're obligated to record, that we can apply for the funding that we need to upgrade some of our equipment, and knowing that that equipment will increase our capacity, increase our workflow capacity, we can now record more than 5 meetings a month. That perhaps we can also record parks, beaches, and recreations. Perhaps we could do the police and fire commissions. These are all meetings that other towns record and make available to their constituents, and we can't because we're kind of really, we're hampered by these long production times.
So again, the cost for labor, fully funded, what is that figure?
So this year it was 32. We're at about anywhere between 32 and 33,000. That's this current fiscal year. Last year we were at 37,000. Again, operation costs really vary on the number of meetings and how long they are, but we're really working hard to have a much more predictable sense of how much it will cost. But that gives you an idea.
Okay, lastly, what I would like to say to you is that I've been a member of this board for quite a long time. This is the third mayor that I've been privileged to work under, and when we didn't have MGAT, we only had the reporters in the audience that would kind of find out what was going on our board and report it in the papers. And they all had to meet their deadline, so around 9 o'clock at night, they were gone. And whoever was making the agendas made sure that whatever was important on that agenda didn't really start till after 9. So we would, that's when the meat of these meetings took place. And I would like to say that the quorum of many of these meetings was not very good. Maybe people didn't wear ties, maybe they didn't talk nice to each other, but I can tell you that the minute that these cameras came in to this here body, many things cleaned up. There was no more misinformation out there, and the public was able to look at these meetings and see the people that they elected to represent them had to say, and what was really being done, not hearsay. And I can only say that it was just an absolute tremendous turnaround of how things went. You look at the audience, there's not a reporter in the audience at all now. They don't even cover Milford. So all of the information that our taxpayers get from these boards that is basically through your network. And I know that you've been asking for not only you, but even people before you, for a little bit more money to try to make this work a little bit better. And I got to say, you've done a markedly improved job from the very beginning to where we are now. But I do think that it's really time for your department here to get some more funds so that we can make this a little bit more, make it better for the taxpayers. We're not talking about a lot of money to give our entire population of Milford what's going on in their city. And I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, watch you guys on TV all the time and it's great. So I'd like to thank you for all of your efforts and your volunteering and what you guys put out now. And I really hope that this board will consider giving a little bit more funding to your program. Thank you.
Alderman Devon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. On the $32,000 grant that you get, is there a time period to which you would spend that much money?
They would like me to spend it in this next fiscal year, in this current fiscal year. At the last meeting when I spoke to them and said we haven't gotten the proposals through and it's taken us more time, they did say it was okay for us to carry it over into the next year, but I can only imagine that that will hurt our standing during the next grant cycle. So I'm very motivated to put these, to make the purchases that we said we needed to make.
So that would be their fiscal year, not the city's fiscal year?
It's the, by June. The June 30th.
Of the $32,000, you will not have spent that all by the end of June?
My goal is to have spent it by June 30th.
And that will be on equipment only?
So it's $32,000. We've already been spending some of it on labor because our city funding has ran out around November. So some of the invoices that have been coming through have been charged to that grant funding, and we still have about $20,000 left.
And my last question is, what I think is very important that the city has picked up, we'll say in the last 6 months or so, was the Minute with the Mayor. I think that's been very informative to a lot of people, and I appreciate that MGAT is kind of involved in it. Could you explain how you are, not you personally, but MGAT is involved with the very popular Minute with the Mayor?
MGAT is actually not involved officially. It is not an MGAT production. It's a production with the community development. All I know is that I personally record and produce Minute with the Mayor. Because and I am compensated for that, but because I cannot, but I am donating all of the funds that I receive to we have a fundraising account. I personally had a goal to raise some funds for MGAT this year, and I'm doing it by generating some revenue and putting it into our MGAT funds. But it's about $3,000 hopefully by the end of the year.
So MGAT has really nothing to do with Minute with the Mayor?
Correct.
Whose equipment do you use?
Pardon, my own.
Thank you.
Alderman Frank Smith.
Just real quick, Gary, I just want to be sure you understand. And correct me, when you started at the beginning, the longer these meetings go, the more it costs us. Is that correct?
Yes.
And not to prolong, you are a volunteer, unlike a lot of people who have preceded you to the podium here tonight who are paid employees. You volunteer your time to do this, and your money, and and a lot of your own resources. And I just want to make sure you understand that we recognize the fact that you're doing this out of the sense of volunteers, and just as we are underpaid, so are you. And it's not meant to suggest in any way that you're questioning some of the things. You need to move this department forward, and I certainly appreciate that. And as I said, I applaud everything you do, and I just want to make sure you know that that's recognized by everyone here on this board. And because you've had to sit here longer than anybody else, I think is also a testimony to the fact that sometimes these things aren't equally shared. You volunteer for things, suddenly you find yourself being asked to take responsibility for them. And I'm glad that you have done that and you've taken over the chairmanship of that.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Milford Government Access Channel? Seeing none? Thank you, Karen, for answering all our questions, taking all the time to clarify things for us, and thanks for the great job you're doing for the city and all the residents of. The next item on our agenda, next department on our agenda is the Flood and Erosion Board. I don't see anybody here from the Flood and Erosion Board.
Mr. Chairman, again, the only cost will be secretarial fees. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions pertaining to the Flood and Erosion Board? The mayor will answer. Seeing none, the next organization or department will be the Tree Commission. And I noticed somebody from the Tree Commission. No, there isn't. They must have imagined that. Mr. Mayor, you have any, does anybody have any questions for the Tree Commission first?
Again, I'm happy to answer those. In addition to the secretarial fees, there is a line item for trees and shrubs, as well as a real minimal amount for essentially trees and shrubs, and then there's some placeholders for postage and duplicating costs and things like that.
Any questions for the Tree Commission department? Seeing none, we'll close under that, and we'll open under the next item on the agenda will be the Tree Commission. Now I know there's representatives from the Tree Commission. That is the Tree Commission, sorry. Conservation Commission. Yay! My eyes are getting tired, sorry.
Hello. So after 9, we must get to the important part of the meeting. Thank you. I'm Janet McAllister. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission, and Mr. Dan Drago is the vice chair. And he's handing out a copy of the report, just a brief little update from us. And I think in the essence of time, we'll just let you peruse that. But thanks for the opportunity to come here, and we appreciate the support you provide the budget for use it for educational trainings, and it enables us to go to workshops and help us do our job better. You know, we're an advisory commission in the city, so we are charged with maintaining an inventory of open spaces and providing recommendations to boards and staff about properties, and the training helps us do our job better. So I can either run through the highlights or just let you peruse that. It just gives a little rundown of some site plan reviews that we provide recommendations on. Maybe I'll just give a couple highlights. One thing you might be interested in, we members of the commission, we've been visiting the 701 North Street property, particularly the Old Orchard section, and we're looking forward to developing some recommendations for the nature reserve, passive recreational uses out there. We think there's one section that's would be really conducive to nice public open space. I think you remember probably the conservation awards proclamations that the mayor gave out last December that we recommended for, and two Girl Scout troops, Subway Corporation, and Garden Commission, a Garden Club member received. And we developed a couple checklists this year to help us monitor the open spaces a little bit better. One we're intending to be kind of a public use tool too. It's going to be available in a paper form and also on a cell phone that you could go out and, record what you're seeing in a property, take some pictures and upload it. So we're hoping to garner a little public engagement with open spaces through that. And our most recent project is we've started installing a number of bluebird nesting boxes with some other city volunteers around the town. We've got a bunch of Eisenhower Park, and we'll put up more 30 total, and it's part of a DEP project to help provide habitat for bluebirds. So we're trying to stay active in both, our duties to review parcels, provide recommendations, but also increase public appreciation and awareness of natural resources. And I'd like to thank our staff liaison, Steve Johnson, who keeps us informed of all the things we need to be paying attention to, brings opportunities to our attention to do public outreach, and it's just very generous with his time. We have subcommittee meetings. Steve will always be there after hours, and it keeps us all energized for conservation. So thank you for your support. No questions.
Alderman Bevan.
Thank you. Through you. Do you receive any grants from anyone?
The Conservation Commission has not received any grants.
So everything that you do for the city is only about $1,100. All I can say is well done. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's just volunteer, yeah. The rest of the work is volunteer time.
Alderman Shaw.
Thank you. Just a quick one. The planning and zoning site plan review, what makes that happen? That doesn't happen normally. When would the planning and zoning board come for a site plan review?
Well, I should probably let Steve answer that to be more precise, but it's generally when there is it's an open space that's associated with that application. And I guess
that's the main criteria, but it's also when we are invited to provide a recommendation by planning and zoning.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is that invitation. Does it come from the board? Does the board say that they want to do this, or does it come
from David Salkus will invite us.
And are there parameters where he would naturally call you in, or is it just as?
Just a broad recommendation, not defined in terms of what the scope is. It's just to provide recommendations on a particular application, and to part of what Janet discussed is developing and refining some checklist components, so we can make sure that we're looking at things with a broad view and covering all of our bases.
Thanks for the clarification.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for everything that you do for taking into helping preserve open space and conserving the natural resources of Belcher. It definitely helps to keep this a beautiful city that we all enjoy. You briefly touched on the idea to get the public more engaged, and can you just talk a little bit more about some of your long-term plans?
Well, first of all, I can show you. I have a few copies of this little checklist. So this is a new initiative of ours, and Dan can pass out a few if you want to share them around. Because we did a very elaborate checklist for commissioners to use to review properties, but then we wanted something that, say, if you're a commissioner or we'd like to promote this for residents too. Say you're out in the park, you can go up to Eisenhower Park and you take a hike in Solomon Woods. An opportunity to make observations like what do you see? Not necessarily what do you see problem-wise, although we certainly like to hear about that, but maybe what did you see wildlife, what did you see beautiful, beautiful plants. So we wanted to provide an opportunity for people to tell us if you saw something that could be a safety hazard, to tell us if you saw something that looked like a lot of fun. And just as a way to get people to share their experiences with some of the local spaces. So we're hoping to promote that. And actually, just as an example of the use of our educational money that you provide. So I had the opportunity to go to the Connecticut Land Council conference this year. And one of the sessions I went to was on electronic monitoring forms. So we had just worked on this form, and there's a really cool software program where I could take this form and turn it into a form that you could pull up on your cell phone. And so like if you're out taking a walk, you could open up your phone, dictate something into it, take a picture of something you see, hit a button and send that form, and that would be something that could come to the commission, and we can keep track of things like that. So that's one idea that we've done, and we often have been talking about maybe sponsoring some educational series, bringing in some presentations, possibly some films. So we're talking about a number of ideas like that.
Alderman Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, through you. My question has actually already been answered while I was waiting, but I want to amplify what Alderman Bevan said, modeling about what you do on the little bit of money and move forward money. And also what Alderman Grant said about the resources of beautiful Milford. But I'm more interested in this checklist, and now that we've passed it out. I'm familiar with the Bluebird box through another organization, and so that is to be commended. But I'd be interested, do you mean that this would be an app for one's iPhone?
Well, what it is it's not really an app. Actually, there's a link if you keep this form. So it's a program. It's sort of like a Google Forms program. So it's called Job Form. So there's a form that is modeled on this. You click on this link. You can either go to it through your cell phone, or you can go on our website, and it pulls up a form with little boxes. It's actually got a little drop-down list that say you can pick, like, I'm at Wilcox Park, or I'm at Eisenhower Park, or I'm just at the Walnut Beach Boardwalk. You can click where you are, click a little calendar for the day, and then you can get your same kind of choices. And instead of little smiley faces, it'll say, it's good, fair, or poor, and then you have a chance to type a little note in, and there's a thing you could take a picture with your cell phone, and who knew? I didn't know until a few weeks ago that you could do that.
And another question, do you intersect at all with the tree commission who listen to procedure and deliberations?
We don't, and we probably should make an effort to do that.
Do you have a mission statement? Do you know? How do you know?
Do we have a mission statement?
What you do, or if there is overlap?
I guess it would be close to the charge that we typed into this opening paragraph of the report, which that is our mission. It's really our charge as a city commission. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not officially. I guess you'd call that a mission statement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just a real quick question. The Bluebird S boxes, how do you know that it's bluebirds that are going in there?
Well,
can it be any bird?
Well, it can be, but actually, this program is sponsored by the Connecticut DEP, and part of getting the wood for these boxes is an agreement that you monitor the boxes, and so you don't know for sure if bluebirds are going to get in there. Actually, the DEP wants you, if you see house sparrows, those English sparrows in there, they actually want you to get those, disturb those nests and get them out of there. So there's no guarantee. What you're trying to do is provide opportunities, but part of this project will be to monitor them. Almost like kind of a bluebird trail, we'll set it up and we'll keep tabs on it and see how it goes and be able to find out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have one of the smallest budgeted in Terry, but look at the crowd. You know, you have the most people.
No, we're dedicated to conservation.
But-
No friends over.
But I like that because I can tell you honestly from my perspective that you truly are a board that I admire and I respect wholeheartedly. There are many things that you're in charge of to give advice on and to direct so many other areas to try to, you know, do what you guys think is the right thing to do. So your budget's very lean, there's not a lot there, but I would like to share a few things with you that I hear often from my constituents. And I know I've shared some of these comments with Mr. Johnson. In regards to open space, we have different labels for open space. So it could be beaches, it could be just open space that people can walk on. It could be any number of things. There's a lot of what constitutes open space. But one of the things that happens so often that I get calls on is that people are unaware of the access points for these open spaces. And I was really hopeful that, you know, on our city website, that we could possibly get a list of, you know, the parks, the recreational areas, the open space areas, you know, a list categorized of what the open space is and where they are and where the access points are. We have right-of-ways through some of the beaches on some of the very congested areas in town where the right-of-ways have been there for decades and decades. And over the years, these right-of-ways have been taken over by the adjoining homeowners. Now, I've seen this on a number of occasions where I'll use East Broadway, where there's an access point to go down to the beach, public beach, and people have taken it over. And over the years, you know, it's like, it's not there anymore. Now we got to go to the riverboard to get everything up and running. Why is there a gate there? Okay, got to get rid of the gate. Let's put a sign up, put the sign up, and now the people have access again to the beach. It was meant for them. You know, it was meant for the public to access our beaches. But over time, what happens is many of these get taken over, and now the people think that they own them, and it's a fight. And it's, you know, if we could only just have these areas marked where people could easily say, that's over in Eisenhower, those are the entrances to the park, over there in back of Jonathan, well, there's many, I won't get into them, but I do believe that you guys have no budget, and certainly you won't volunteer, but you might be able to collectively come up with some good ideas to suggest, you know, to like Mr. Johnson, maybe the Public Works could make up signs that are unique for, you know, access points for the city, where they take these signs down all the time down near the beaches. I don't know if there can be a mark put on the sidewalk that says, oh, you know, look at Milford has a blue stripe there on the sidewalk, that means that's a beach access. It's kind of hard for the people to take the sign down, but it's just another way of identifying some of these access points. But, well, the point being, and I won't belabor this, is that I give your board much praise because you are a very important board, and I would just like to make you aware of these problems, and if we could identify these open spaces and access points, and we can get our different departments to collectively join in to make whatever you need and install whatever you need, maybe it would be a nicer, easier place in Milford for the residents to, you know, find and use all these things that we've spent the money on to last, you know, our children and their children generations from now, and make it easier for them to use. And I thank you for all the volunteer and work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful concern to raise. I look forward to addressing that with the commission and working with Steve. I know he's been researching and working on mapping all of these open spaces. There are all those different kinds, but I think that's something, I think Dan and I would agree that the commission, we would welcome that and to, come up with some ideas, and maybe we could come back with a bigger budget for you next year to help here. But no, seriously, I think it's a wonderful suggestion, and I welcome taking that to the commission. Thank you.
Any more questions regarding the Conservation Commission? Seeing none, thank you very much for all your answering all your questions. The next department on our agenda is open space. Account number 4162, page 34. Evening, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. It is great to be here, and thank you for your patience and appreciation for the role of the Conservation Commission. They are an incredible team that I'm grateful to be working with. They're very dedicated and very aligned with a lot of the issues and concerns that I've been focused on. In the essence of time, I'm not going to read the comments here that I had provided, but I figured what I would like to do is just provide a little highlight to try to tie together some of the areas of focus that I've been working on this past year. And it really boils down for this highlight is really in terms of some of the grant focuses that I've been working on projects, the value of education, such as what you heard tonight from Janet talking about the job form concept that some communities are using, and then also the value of the volunteers, because really so much of the outreach and efforts that I work towards is to engage the public and help them appreciate so much of the great things that make up Milford here, and really welcome the opportunity for them to be involved in a really meaningful way. And when I look at roughly the volunteer projects last year, there was over 1,700 hours of volunteers. If we monetize that for a in-kind grant match, that would be the equivalent of about $47,000. So, but what's really more important is when those volunteers get involved, they have a sense of appreciation, a sense of stewardship, and a greater appreciation for the community. So that's so much of what I think is valued for our open spaces from a natural resource standpoint, and how that really benefits our environmental, our social, and our economic well-being. So I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you. Through Steve, I know that in the past you brought in a lot of grant money to the city. I just would like to know, do you have an updated amount that you brought in so far?
I really have, the last grant that came in was the Circa Dune Restoration Grant, which was a very small grant in the scheme of things, but no less important, and that was a value of around a little over $7,800, doing a dune restoration project down at Walnut Beach. And it took, for that grant, it was the first, I believe, the first grant we applied for. It was the first grant awarded through this new program at UConn and Circa. And it took UConn about 3 or 4 months to get us a contract. It took us 3 or 4 months to review it. And by the time we got the contract ready to go, it was too late to start doing the restoration work last year. So we postponed that until we just did a dune planting for 2,100 beachgrass plants last Sunday. And so that's the last grant that we've received. I keep looking for other grants to apply for, but also want to be sensitive to, in terms of the criteria that in the competitive grant, what their criteria for awards are. and also what are the monetary match requirements on behalf of the city. So the dune restoration grant, even though it was small, we could fulfill the match requirements with volunteer in-kind services and not having dollar payout by the city to fulfill that grant. Other grants are in that I summarized here briefly are in going through various stages of progress and completion.
Thank you. And have you been noticing more of a shift or a change with some of the grants that they require matching from the city? I have seen some of the ones we brought in the past that were just fully funded, which definitely thank you for finding those, and especially the dune restoration. Hopefully that'll help keep some of the sand off the boardwalk.
Right.
Do you foresee more of those happening?
I see an increasingly more competitive climate for looking for grants as we see a lot of these services, the funding being in question or not readily available. And what I'm also seeing is a lot of these grants, certainly on a more regional and national scale, having criteria that while we certainly are welcome to apply, some of these grants also would cost money for us to apply, such as Connecticut DEP when they offer a open space watershed acquisition grant. We would have to provide a minimum from probably most of our properties two appraisals. And those appraisals, typically for the type of appraisals that they require would be over $3,500 is the estimate that I could get. So just to apply for a grant, we'd have to spend out of pocket $7,000 without any assurances that we would be receiving any award. So we want to be careful on how we use our resources, not only to apply for these grants, but also making sure that any of the requirements for application fees, that we don't encumber the city for something that's not really important.
Thank you. And the last question I have, I see that tomorrow you're doing a presentation about bobcats at the library. I think that's a great idea. I hope I can make it to attend. Are you planning on doing more of those in the future? Because that's a great way to involve the community and have them learn about more of what you're doing in the open space.
Thank you. The interesting thing is I've been doing these programs all along, but so often to small groups of people, and it doesn't necessarily get out there. I decided, given the news and interest in some of our wildlife, the bobcats and the coyotes, etc., that I would take advantage of one of the programs I did in 2015, which is a Connecticut DEP Wildlife Conservation Program, and take advantage of some of the resources and develop some of these presentations. And to offer it, tomorrow I'm going to be doing that same presentation in abbreviated form to the library, to the Milford Garden Club during the middle of the day, and the library in the evening. I spoke with the Milford Senior Center today, and going to be doing a presentation on conservation history in Connecticut that I created for the Milford Historical Society that I gave about a year ago. So, the opportunity to keep a lot of this information and repurpose it for these type of talks. About a week and a half ago, as a result of another course that I lobbied for, which is the Coastal Certificate Program, working with the Connecticut Sea Grant and Long Island Sound Study, we were able to, they were willing to spend about $150, $175 to provide a showing, a one-time showing at the Milford Library of this hometown habitat movie. We had 55 people attend within about a week and a half notice. So there is an interest out there, and I do intend on continuing to do some of these type of talks. Outreach, I did an Earth Day talk at Orchard Hills School last week to the K2 program and 3-5, so I enjoy it, and it's nice to hear the public's interest and get their questions. And bobcats and coyotes are next.
Thank you.
Alderman Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. A quick question. Do you have a Scott grant for the brochures?
it wasn't a grant I wrote, it was a grant that SCROG received to provide this, update their recreational trails, which numbered over about 100 trails through the communities, SCROG communities. And, but it was a perfect opportunity. It was something that I had been working on in town here with my own GPS and doing that, but it just provided the platform to be able to make this a reality, and then leverage that with Mayor Blake and the mayor. It was a great little asset.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I don't know if this is your purview or not, Steve, but could you tell us how our border collies are doing with the geese?
So I will preface that with, I think the current border collies, dog coyotes, had the benefit of our Girl Scouts. We had started a campaign last fall, "Do Not Feed the Waterfowl," and they were handing out brochures, educating and doing public outreach to people why feeding bread and donuts and other things to the geese isn't healthy for them. And I think that had a noticeable improvement on the sidewalk conditions around City Hall Pond, and I don't know about North Street Pond, but so I think the coyotes are just those cutouts are one example of a number of different tools in the toolbox to provide kind of aversion techniques to keep the geese off, uncomfortable and avoiding staying in one area.
Are we going to have more of those? Because I see the geese getting more comfortable with these with these cutouts, and maybe if we had a few more on there, there would be no landing zone for them.
Well, I think part of it is, and I've talked with Chris about this, Chris Saley. I think part of it is probably is taking these and moving them on a pretty regular basis so they don't get accustomed to them in one spot. It's just one tool, and I think it's a combination of many. And in some, obviously I think these are really high quality in terms of their ability to move with wind, and I have seen the geese, getting more comfortable, but I think if we move them around in those areas, it might help.
It's becoming a real bit obvious. We know it's a problem, but I live very close to the Upper Duck Pond, and those geese are coming up halfway up the street and feeding and doing their thing.
The geese are a great example of being very adapted to our urban environment, not just in Milford, but other areas. And last year I participated in the DEP Canada Geese Banding Day as part of the whole population monitoring. So there's a lot of attention going into this across the state, not just in Milford, but helping people understand that these are wildlife, and it's not natural for wildlife to come towards people, and it's just because they've been habituated to come towards food.
But as we all know, we're not going to get rid of them. We're just going to push them somewhere else. So what do we do somewhere else? And because it is a mess. I thank you for your
I give Mayor Blake a lot of credit for this has not been the first conversation over the years to say what can we do. And he's heard about other things, projects that communities have done. Can we do that here? Can we do that here? So there are some recommendations DEP has provides for communities. We're doing the field work. So we've got to take them one step at a time.
Thank you, Steve.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, I don't know if you have an answer to this, this is kind of off topic, but are there more coyote showing up in Milford? I guess I've just been seeing them a little bit more, and then someone also took a picture of a bobcat, and they're it's all over kind of Facebook, but I've also seen them, and I've seen coyote in my neighborhood, which I've been living there for 20 years now, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing them. Any explanation on why?
I think it's a combination of them also being more adapted and used to our way of living here. Foods that are available, sometimes people leave pet food on their back porches and things that they will take advantage of. I myself don't live too far from you and have seen coyotes and bobcats. My wife saw a bobcat last fall. I saw one, had one on my video trail camera about a month ago. I was home at 6:30 at night. You know, I had no idea the bobcat was right off the edge of my property. My dogs didn't know about it. And, you know, this wildlife is really accustomed to staying out of sight, although there are occasions when, like about 3 or 4 weeks ago, a bobcat was seen just at the corner of High Street and West Main Street at 9 o'clock in the morning crossing the intersection. So, you know, part of my reason for reaching out tomorrow night and to the Garden Club is to say, you know, this wildlife exists around us, you know, and part of it is that they have less and less habitat. So, you know, it's they're going to be more likely to be seen in some areas. But I think the myths are that, you know, it's dangerous, and the fact is that bobcat diets are mostly squirrel and rabbit. They're not our house pets, so. But we do understand, you know, how their role is in our community and what to be concerned about.
Alderman Beccarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I was looking at the budget here for, you're the director, I guess, of your single employee budget here. And I don't really see any requests, no line items, nothing, just, you know, your pay, you know, that's it. And we're so fortunate to have you doing all the work that you do for us, bringing all these grant monies and that you brought in for us, that you try to bring in for us. But I feel that there's so much more that you could do with just a little. And like, I know, like, you've basically used over 1,300 miles to put on your own private car. And on some of these, I realize that you've been educating yourself quite a bit, going to a lot of the educational programs and stuff. And some of the costs are paid for by different agencies and stuff like that. But like if you were working on your regular course of the day and you had a seminar, you know, that you would be able to go to with no expense because you're already being paid for and stuff like that, right? But if one was in the evening or if one was on the weekend, then these expenses are being borne from out of your own pocket. Am I understand?
Well, it's my choice, and you know, I'm not obligated to go to any of these. I try to make choices that are going to bring value to my role here and help with projects and networking across other communities. So it's a choice I make, and it's one that fortunately I enjoy, and I enjoy working with people like Janet and Dan that I meet at these conferences, and so and have a lot of good ideas that come out of this. So it's
would I be in the ballpark to say that you've spent maybe $470 out of your own pocket for educational?
Well, what my choice is that the courses that I've gone to, I've paid out of my own pocket. I want to make sure that the commissioners on the Conservation Commission, to any conferences that they go to, that they have the first option to get reimbursed if they decide to go to the conference. And then at the near the end of the year, before while those funds are still available, that I would then submit those for reimbursement if there's no other educational reimbursements that they would be needing. So they would have the first choice.
During the course of the day, when you drive around, do you have a city car or do you use your own personal car?
I use my own personal car.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that, you are one of our important employees that and you travel around with all of these things, and I understand that you're very, you don't ask for much, but I like to see something like in your budget next year maybe that says a line item for educational expenses, for training, maybe a line item for, you can get a car or something, but we certainly, I think, need to do a little bit more for your department than we're doing now, especially for millions that you brought into the city of Milford to help us, so, but I would, there's, as you know, as I talked with the council a minute ago, you do a lot and there's no money. Well, if we could just add a little bit of money there, imagine what we could do with what you guys are in charge of. So I only suggest this to help you and maybe help the other council that, don't be afraid to put something in here in your budget, because I think you probably gain a lot of support from this board because they know that it's going for the taxpayers and to really make our city so much better for not a lot of money.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Having said all that, heard all that, I'm sure that you are able to deduct a lot of continuing education mileage on your income taxes also. I don't know that for a fact, but I know it's out there. You can do it as a volunteer. I volunteer a lot and I can do it too. So having said all that, there's an outlet there too. Thank you. Thank you. But thank you for all you do.
Any more questions for the open space account? Seeing none, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for everything you do for our city. The next account on the agenda is account number 4160, Housing Code Board of Appeals, page 34. Anyone have any questions pertaining to the Housing Code Board of Appeals? We'll close on to that. And our last account is account number 4998, Milford Promise Incorporated, page 19.
Mr. Chair, through you, the line item for the Respect campaign is the Milford Promise. The Respect campaign is one of the programs that Milford Promise puts out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anybody have any questions pertaining to that? Well, there isn't. Is there a motion to recess to the next budget meeting on April 17th? Motion been made and seconded to recess this meeting until April 17th. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are in recess. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.